Greetings everyone, ciao from Italy, this is Panthera Arvin and welcome back to a new speed painting of mine. This is page 99 from my comic Africa, which you can read on DeviantArt, on Tapastic, on Twitter, and on a bunch of different places, which I will post the links of in the description. This is basically my process for a single panel. Specifically, I wanted to record this because I was experimenting a new way of shading with, you can see here, purple, and I just wanted to share my experience with you and maybe share a couple tips with drawing traditionally, which maybe can help some of you. So I hope you enjoyed this. Also, I would like to know whether you prefer me to talk during these speed painting videos or whether you just prefer music. Let me know, because as you can see, this is just a test, just to check out what I can do and what I cannot. And if you guys like it, I can keep narrating some of these videos, just, you know, to explain stuff. So let's jump right into it. This scene here has two leopard cubs. The one on the right, you can see, is Chewie from the comic, is the main antagonist. The one on the left is his brother called, well, I called him Crybaby. Actually, Chewie called him Crybaby. He doesn't have an official name yet. I just like calling him Crybaby because, let's admit, it is kinda is. At least in Chewie's eyes, he is. So yeah. So basically, this scene has these two cubs arguing over this piece of prey. That's basically a hare. So what I did at first, I just laid down a shade of purple throughout basically the whole environment, and I specifically added a lot of purple in the background, and I left some parts white in the foreground. And I did not pay too much attention to it at first, because I'm going to add details later. After that, I start with the vegetation around it. I usually start from the background so that I can insert the characters into the background accordingly, and they kind of look natural. So what I did was I just colored the plants in different shades of green just to add variety. And I'm not very precise with it yet, because I'm going to add more shades later. I'm just sketching out some leaves and some textures just to make it more interesting, and I'm using different shades of green, colder greens and warmer greens. And in the background, you can see I'm actually adding a lot of dark because I want contrast, because Chewie, the leopard cub, is right in front of it, and so he's going to be gold, and I want a lot of contrast. Speaking of gold, the grass is going to contain a lot of yellow, especially in the foreground, because yellow is a color that attracts attention. It's very saturated, this shade, and this is also a reason why I chose purple for the shadows, because purple and yellow are complementary colors, so I thought it will look nice, and it will kind of turn off the color a little, because it was going to be a little too bright. So for the background, I chose a darker, less saturated shade of yellow, and I also added some brown to create some variety. And you can see here I'm adding basically more texture to it with the same brown pencil which I used for the background. And you can see me using it in foreground as well. It's still very saturated. That's going to change later on as I add more details. So after working on the ground, I went and completed the sky, which I used this pale blue on. And basically I filled everything with that pale blue, and then I went back in with a darker shade of blue for the mountains. That's the rim of the crater in which the story takes place. Basically I colored the crater walls with that darker shade of blue, and then in the background I added those two lighter shades to add further mountains, because that gives an impression of distance. Clearer objects, paler objects look more distant than darker ones. After which I started working on the characters. When everything was complete background-wise, I started the characters, and I started from Crybaby. I don't know why. It's just I wanted to start from him. So for him and for every other character in my novels, I have basically a color chart. So every color that I use for the characters is listed, so that I don't make mistakes, and so that I keep consistency within the pages. So here for him I have this shade of warm brown mixed with orange, I think, yeah. And so basically what I'm doing, I'm just adding the shadow on the spots where I added a purple at the very first stage. The purple helps me determine where the shadows are going to be. And I'm doing the same thing with the other tones in this coat. He's got some lighter tones on his belly and on the undersides of his body. So yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I will add the spots basically last. That's going to be the last steps, because the spots are going to cover everything above, everything beneath, sorry. So yeah, they're going to be the very last step. For now I'm just adding detail to his mouth and his eyes, and I'm gonna add shines to his eyes to make him look a little bit more alive, I guess. And I'm using a gel pen for that, just your regular gel pen. After which I went on and moved on the hair, and I used a very desaturated brown. I didn't want to give it too much attention, just wanted to be there, so that the reader could acknowledge it. But I didn't really, it wasn't the very center of attention. The center of attention was the fact that Chewie is biting on it. So the part in which Chewie is biting has a lot of contrast, because that is exactly what I wanted. So yeah, I'm adding tones to it, and I'm using the same colors as the background, so the yellows and browns you saw in the background. So the hair blends a lot. Instead, for Chewie, I'm trying to give him a lot of contrast, because he's one of the protagonists of this scene. So I'm using slightly different yellows and browns for his pelt. He also has a little bit of green in his pelt, and so yeah, he's basically, you see, that's the yellow that I was talking about, the yellowish green. And also for him, I will add the spots last. But before I do that, what I do usually is, for Chewie and his brother, I wanted them to be quite different. But I also gave them like colors that are in common, so that they could look like they were brothers, since they have similar tones, similar faces, let's say. And so yeah, that's the reasoning while creating these characters. So yeah, I'm adding more detail now. Right now I'm adding yellow to the foreground. To the blades of grass, I'm redoing the ones that I think need a little bit more tweaking, and I'm adding the black. Usually I add it last because it tends to cover every other color. I added black to the hair so that I could complete the foreground where the blades of grass are, because the difficulty of making grass traditionally is that you don't have layers like you do with Photoshop. So you have to be very careful where you place your colors so that you can, let's say, make contrast and make the blades of grass show, even though they're exactly on the same layer of everything else. So right now I'm darkening the background so that the foreground has more contrast, and I'm working on the details. Right now I'm working a lot of details for that grass. You can see it popping up against the characters' bodies, basically. I wanted them to be looking like they are in the scene, that's why I did them last. So I'm adding more purple. After I add it the first time, I usually add it a second time, the shadows, whatever color it is. In this case it's purple. So you can see me adding on Chewy and on the hair, and especially where the shadows should be. So even on the ground, you can see me adding their shadows, their cast shadows, so that they can actually look like they're in the scene. Especially in the background, I add a lot of purple so that the foreground stands out more, because it contains less purple than the background does. So yeah, you can see me adding a lot of contrast to that plant, like I showed you before, because as I said, purple and yellow are complementary, so that the yellow coat of Chewy stands out more in the foreground. Here I'm adding more contrast by adding a lot of pale yellow to the blades of grass, so that they pop out. You can see them like standing out against all that purple. I add a little bit of lighting to the coats of both the leopards. I do that by just using a pale pink, because once again the shadows are purple. And finally you can see me adding the spots. So here Crybaby's spots are the shade of brown, very desaturated brown, to go along with this coat. And what I envision for Crybaby spots are to be very round and very thick to match his body shape. Basically I wanted him to be quite chubby, round, kind of fat, a little bit fat. So his spots complement his design by being round as well. I also gave him freckles to his face, because I love freckles, and I think it's a nice touch for a leopard, because they're already full of spots, and it's nice for them to have freckles as well. And for the inside of the spots and the rosettes, I use a different shade of brown. And you can see me adding spots to Chewy's coat as well. His spots are black, so I usually, as I said, leave the black for last, because otherwise it will end up covering everything, and it's really hard to go back from there when you're using traditional art. It's much easier to just add the darkest colors last, so that they won't end up covering very important details. And you can see me adding the brown to the rosette, and I think that's it. So this is the final result. I really hope you like it, and if you're interested, you can read this page as well as the rest of the comic in the link I provided below in the description. So yep, that's everything I had to say. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this format, if you would rather just me shutting up and playing music instead. I will do that, it's okay. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, have a nice one. See ya!